worst way. We didn't vote on this. Women didn't vote on this. It was an all-male Supreme Court that gave it to us. Most of the abortion facilities in America are owned by men, and most abortion doctors are men, and no one benefits more than a bad man. An irresponsible man is the true winner in an abortion. And so men's involvement has been very shameful since its inception. Because in 1973, we once again dehumanized a segment of our population. The first time we did it with Dred Scott. And this time, it wasn't because of the color of anyone's skin, it was because of their size and their location. So we changed what it meant to be an American. And as a result of Roe v. Wade, the United States, even today, puts us in a shameful category for legalized abortion. Our laws are so radical, we're only up there with North Korea, China, Vietnam, and Canada. Those are the most pro-abortion laws you'll find anywhere in the country. You can take the most secularized country in Europe. If they came to the United States, they would be more pro-life than Mississippi. They'd be the most pro-life state in the Union. Most of Europe is 12 weeks. So what did we do? We're Americans, we're not monsters. We regulated abortion, and the states could do that. And it wasn't until 2019 when we took that inevitable step, starting in New York with Governor Cuomo, where we would say, you know what? Roe v. Wade allows abortion on the day of birth. We're going to allow that. And New York went a step further and denied medical care to a baby who survives an abortion. Only surgery you're not supposed to survive. And that's why 2019 we entered this era of infanticide. And it's the problem with playing God. Because when you play God, you're constantly moving the goal line. You're constantly moving the first down marker. When can we kill a baby and sleep at night? Is it 12 weeks? Is it 16 weeks? Is it 24 weeks? When is it viable? Well, viability has changed. Some think it's 25 weeks, then it went to 22 weeks. We do surgery on 20-week-old babies. We don't allow pregnant women to get on roller coasters. We won't serve them 10 whiskeys at a bar. We legally protect the unborn. So Roe v. Wade made us schizophrenic. Because we like babies. You know, when you get a group text from families, group texts are either a lot of fun or hell on earth. When you get a group text and cousin Sally, they're having another baby. And everybody's like, oh my God, that's so cool. What are you going to find out? Is it a boy or a girl? We do this once a year. No dopey uncle texts back, well, you're 12 weeks. I mean, could you send the text when you're 25 weeks? Because that's when I personally believe the baby is viable and could live outside of you. And so I'll be excited then, and I'll get you a gift and all that. Nobody says that. Nobody says that. It's only when we want to abort the baby that we will dehumanize him or her. And we can't have it both ways. That's why we can't sleep at night. That's why we're still gathering at Arrowhead for pro-life talks 50 years after legalization of abortion. Because you can't have it both ways. Because we're not mutual funds. We don't gain value over time. We don't get more dignity each week. The mom doesn't go to the doctor when she's 10 weeks and then goes at 20 weeks and is like, man, now I really love my baby. We don't operate like this. We only dehumanize someone if we want to get rid of them. But that doesn't take away their dignity. It just says more about us than it does about them. Because science has put us in this difficult position. You have to live in 1973 science. You have to be a science denier to be an honest abortion supporter. You have to make, might must overcome right. Might makes right. It has to. Because our will is the only difference. Because we can't be excited for our niece and look at somebody else and say, your circumstances clearly show that you ought not to have a baby. Because the baby exists from conception. That's when life begins, not because we believe it, not because it's in the book of Genesis, but because that's when life begins, at conception. And that is the great danger that we have been going through these last 50 years. In 2019, this era of infanticide, when we didn't have the fringe with megaphones out screaming, about reproductive rights. They weren't lobbying for infanticide. We had governors, one governor in Virginia, Northam, described it on a radio show in graphic detail. But we can't imagine that as Americans or human beings. We can't imagine a baby girl surviving an abortion and not doing anything. It's only a monster could walk away. I mean, we have 8 kids, so we've only done this 8 times, right? When you look at your kids in the eye for the first time, and there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. It doesn't matter if it's your first kid, your 5th kid, your 2nd kid. And if you're unable to have children, there's nothing like the first time you hold a newborn. There's just nothing like that. It opens up your world. You're completely vulnerable looking into your kid's eyes for the first time. There's a vulnerability. There's a selflessness there that you would do anything for this. You have no problems in the world anymore. You would do anything for this human being. And we have people dressed in suits who are supposed to be educated saying we can walk off and allow that child to suffocate. Barbaric doesn't do it justice. But all of that rhetoric was so good for the pro-life movement. So good. Because if you support abortion, you can support infanticide. One side is forced to go all in. And they've gone all in. And gone are the days when Bill Clinton was the pro-life governor of Arkansas and he was going to run for president, so he became pro-abortion. And so he came up with the genius phrase, unfortunately, I don't like abortion, that's why I want to make abortion safe, legal, and rare. And everybody ripped that off, and Planned Parenthood ripped it off, and that was he created that. That's why they called him Slick Willie. And maybe we called him Slick Willie. Maybe it was just my Irish grandfather that called him Slick Willie. God rest his soul. That's a joke now. Safe, legal, and rare? Safe, legal, and rare. We have shout your abortion and infanticide. So that level of noise on the other side has benefited the pro-life movement because we're forced to know what it is we're talking about and not talking about in an abortion. And more importantly, who we're talking about. When can we abort the baby? Why can we abort the baby? And that has brought so many new people into the pro-life movement. Now, there was a story in the media. It was mentioned about ultrasounds, and their numbers are 432 ultrasounds. Unbelievable. No wonder they're crammed into that office, and I know they'll have to address that, I'm sure, in the coming years. But that's awesome. They're seeing 93% of the women they see are abortion-minded. That is the highest stat I've ever heard from any pregnancy centers, and I've spoken for hundreds of pregnancy centers throughout America. I have never heard 93%. More often than not, they're like 20%, they want to keep it a secret because they're not attracting the abortion-minded women. And Sonia is. That's awesome. That's why we're winning, because she's right. Where you go first matters. Where you take your pregnancy test matters. Planned Parenthood does 181 abortions for every one adoption referral. And that number has become so sad, and they put it in their annual report, that to just get it out of their annual report, most of them just stopped doing abortion referrals at all. Because it was just such a PR nightmare for choice. where you go first matters. But when you walk into Parkville, that is completely different from walking into an abortion facility. It's two totally different experiences. And that's why you're here tonight. That's why I'm here tonight. Is to create, yes, the atmosphere and offer the truth, but to do so in love. And that's why they have 93%, because it's not judgmental. Because they know that no woman grows up wanting an abortion. Any one of us would find $400 or $500 to make our greatest fear, our greatest worry go away. No one grows up wanting to work in the abortion industry either. But there was a story in the news years ago, and it really revealed at the heart of why we're here. It was a story in Sarasota, Florida. It was a young couple, a married couple. They wanted children. So they went to the doctor, and they found out, hey, we're having twins. And so we have no twins. You don't have to ask me that later. We have triplets. No, I'm teasing you. This couple was having twins, so they were ecstatic, and they went through that frenzy. You know, you rearrange the house. They got 2 new cribs. They had 2 new nurseries. It's kind of funny when there's a healthy, like we're having a baby, and every time we have one, it's like we've never done it before. You know, for me, my wife's like, the crib's going in that room, and that's it. You know, but this couple was no different. So they got 2 cribs and painted 2 nurseries and were ready to welcome home their beautiful twins. All until they had tests run and found out that one of the babies had Down syndrome. So they opted for a selective abortion to abort the baby with Down syndrome. And the abortion doctor aborted the wrong baby. And so they went in again and had the baby with Down syndrome aborted a final time, a baby girl. And that young couple who was conditionally open to life then had to go home and walk into 2 empty nurseries and stare at 2 empty cribs. I mean, no wonder our Lord looks at us and says, do not weep for me. Weep for yourselves and for your children. The abortion doctor had a mental breakdown over the whole thing and was in a mental institution. And when he got out of the mental institution, a local reporter in her glory, an NBC reporter, interviewed him. And he blamed the botched abortion on faulty ultrasound technology. The very thing that Parkville uses to save babies, he blamed for why he had to kill 2 babies. But the reporter asked a great question. She said, but you've done tens of thousands of abortions throughout your life. Why did this one bother you so much? And his answer gets to the heart of the matter. He said, because it was the first time in my life I knew that I'd taken the life of someone who was wanted. And therein lies the great evil and the great danger that the abortion disaster has put us in. That if the baby is wanted, he or she is good and a blessing and to be celebrated, and if not, discarded. And that is a dangerous world. That creates a dangerous society, and that is the definition of might makes right, because they simply have no defense. They have no voice but ours. And that just sterile mentality is the complete opposite of what a woman gets when she walks in Parkville and she gets an ultrasound. She has a pregnancy test. And, 90% of the women that see their baby on ultrasound choose life. So 432 ultrasounds in 1 year. What they're doing is working. What they're doing is proven. And it's no wonder that the abortion industry is closing abortion facilities left and right. Because no woman wants to grow up and have an abortion. And so the first stop is so critical. is so critical. And for y'all, the abortion facility is so far away, and there's another center next to that, Planned Parenthood in Overland Park. I've been there a couple of times. That you can be the first stop for many more women. And it's so crucial. Now, I never thought I would be at Arrowhead giving a speech. I grew up and I love the Chiefs. I really wish y'all would have won it when Montana came here. That would have been awesome. Somebody talked about that last year because Brady went to the Bucs and Montana tried to do that here, but he couldn't do it. I'm sorry, I keep talking about the Chiefs, but the field's like right there. I grew up in Tyler, Texas. I went to a small Catholic school in Tyler, Texas. Tyler, Texas is 2% Catholic, literally. And I think I'm related to all the other Catholics. So when you have a Catholic school in East Texas, 98% of the students are Southern Baptists. So what non-believers look at and call dysfunctional, Christians call interdenominational. You can kind of stick it in their face, We all get along. We're all in the same school. And I was in the 8th grade, and I heard my first pro-life speaker, who was Carol Everett. Carol owned 4 abortion facilities in the Dallas-Fort Worth area before her conversion, and she was speaking at the largest Baptist church in our town, Green Acres. And so I went and I heard her testimonial, and it really hit me at a very young age. I was very fortunate just hearing this woman who ran 5 abortion facilities, and then have a conversion. And I heard another former abortion doctor speak when I was a sophomore in high school. And so I went to Texas A&M University, and my then girlfriend, now wife, would go out and peacefully pray at our local Planned Parenthood. And she asked me to go, and I didn't really want to go the first time and go out there. But she made it clear that we were going, and we went. And that's the current system. So, and it hit me because I was 18 or 19 years old, so these are my peers going in. I'm 39 now, so these are my peers going in, having abortions, and it just broke my heart and really challenged me as a man, too. What am I doing? Nothing. So I kept going out there, and I wanted to be a lawyer and was on my way to law school, and the local pro-life group, the Coalition for Life, hired me. So I ended up being the director of that for 6 years, and we started 40 Days for Life in the midst of that, which is 40 days of prayer, 40 days of fasting, and 40 days of a nonstop peaceful vigil outside of our abortion facility. And that was the first 40 Days for Life campaign. It was in 2004. And then city after city started asking us about it. So in 2007, we launched it as a nationally coordinated effort, hoping we'd get 20 cities, but we had 89 cities in 33 states. And in the fall of 2007, that led to a spring campaign. So for the last 14 years, we've done a fall campaign and a spring campaign. And 40 Days for Life has now gone to 1,000 cities in 65 different countries. We just added Cuba. We just added South Korea is participating in their first 40 Days for Life this fall. Right now, there are 612 cities, including Overland Park, who are participating in 40 Days for Life. And that's why we work so closely with the pregnancy resource centers, because we've had 20,000 moms that we know of, confirm that they chose life, and we connect them to our local pregnancy center. You never want your daughter or anybody you love to encounter a 40 Days for Life campaign. I mean, we're the last line of defense. And it's been a blessing to see something that is done, yes, for God, but also for country. We use our rights in the public right away, and we go out there and we peacefully pray, and it's amazing to see not only the people that just have a change of heart, but and choose life at the last moment, but we've helped 222 abortion facility workers who have had a change of heart and left their jobs, including Abby Johnson, whose story is very well known. And I knew Abby well. I knew Abby for 8 years when she worked in the abortion industry. We started volunteering on opposite sides of the fence. We started working for opposing organizations. We often did media interviews against one another's points. And she was asked to assist with an ultrasound-guided abortion, And she saw a 13-week-old baby boy fight for his life and lose it. And if any of y'all have not seen the movie Unplanned, I strongly encourage that you see it. It's her story. It was a major motion picture. And I'll never forget the gentlemen that made Unplanned are Chuck Konzelman and Carrie Sullivan, and they wrote God's Not Dead. And then they wanted their next project, they wanted to write, direct, and produce it. So Unplanned was it. So they called me. They're from New Jersey, and they're these big guys. And when you talk to them, you feel like you're in a scene out of Goodfellas or The Godfather or something. It's like no introduction. It's like, we're making a movie. I'm coming to your house. We're gonna interview you, baby. It's like, who is this? But they did do that, and we did our quick due diligence and let them into my house and introduced them to my children. And they wrote the movie. This was probably 2015 when they interviewed Mary Lisa and I, and then they came back and they wanted to go in our building because we've closed 112 abortion facilities through 40 Days for Life, and one of them is the location where it started in College Station, and that's now our headquarters of 40 Days for Life. And so it's the reason we beat Alabama. So they wanted to come to that building, and they were going to build it in Oklahoma where they were going to film the movie. So they walked around, and I took them into the room where most of the abortions were done. And if you've seen the movie, that room is where one of the main scenes is. And when that Planned Parenthood closed, they took everything, and I explained to Chuck and Carrie that one thing that they left was where the beds were, where the woman would lay down and have the abortion. And hanging over the bed, they had it connected with a paper clip, was a baby mobile of different designs, stars, fish, just childish looking. And that was for them to stare at during the actual abortion. Because this requires so much distraction. It requires distraction in every aspect from the reality. You see it in the media, you see it in politicians, you'll see it in some churches. We will not talk about this. One side of the issue will talk about it. And we're told we're too religious. This is the most barbaric thing that happens, and I'll never forget those two grown men standing in that room just started weeping. And Carrie said, "This is Auschwitz, and we're going to make this come alive on the big screen." And they did. They made a great movie. And that distraction is what Parkville is fighting every single day. That's why the scenarios that Sonia used were so great and so real. Because that is their day-to-day, and this weighs on them. And it's so great that this is at Arrowhead, and it's so great that so many of y'all are here, because, of course, we're here to raise money. We're going to raise a lot of money, especially you guys have the 70% tax credit. I need to look at houses here. That's amazing. But it's also a morale booster for the board of directors and the staff, because this can wear on them. I mean, doing 432 ultrasounds to get to that point, that's 432 difficult conversations with 432 women who are abortion-minded. That's a lot. That's the front lines of the front lines. Everybody says, we got to change hearts and minds. They're doing it, and they're doing it all day, every day, in a space that sounds like it's too small. And that's why we're winning. That's why we're winning. That's why when I list those countries and we're like China and North Korea with our abortion laws, that's crazy. But we're not like China, and we're not like North Korea in our pro-life movement. We have the largest, most robust pro-life movement in the world. And it is a dead issue in most of Europe. But it's not a dead issue here. We're renting out football stadiums. Because we know that America was not born to end the life of our own children. That you have a right to life before anything else. And if we don't have a right to life in America, we're not going to have a right to life anywhere in the world. We're it. We're it. There's being patriotic, and then there's also having common sense when you travel the world. America is it. as far as hope for the world. Whether that's good or bad, and we have to save our own children. We have to constantly correct our wrongs. And when we have like the bill in Texas where you can't do an abortion on a baby with a heartbeat, and people just lost their minds. And it was legitimate to go on television and courageous to go on television and advocate to stop heartbeats of children. Think about that. I mean, heartbeats are good. We all want our heart to keep beating. Unless you're a cynical Irishman. Heartbeats are good. When you go to the doctor's appointments, that's the most beautiful thing. That's like the first big connection you have is hearing your child's heartbeat for the first time. And it's devastating if you don't hear the heartbeat. It's the opposite. So things like the heartbeat bill and things like Governor Cuomo running around celebrating infanticide, those are ways that we take the temperature on our culture. And the temperature says what we all know and why we're here and why we support Parkville, which is we're sick. We're a sick people. And we need the great physician. We need the author of life who didn't pop out of an acorn and save us from our sins. He chose the womb. He chose a family. He chose a holy family, and he didn't have to. And he chose to work and to sweat and to be a baby and to be a teenager. He chose our humanity. He didn't have to do any of it. And that is why the devil attacks that beautiful gift that women have so uniquely, that they can grow a child and support a child right after he or she is born. That's why, yes, we fight this in the courts and we always will, but we have to fight it through hearts and minds because we're not robots and we're not legal documents walking around. We have hearts, minds, and souls. And when Abby Johnson walked into my office and had a meltdown and told me about her witnessing that abortion, there's one thing everybody asks me, what do you remember the most? And the thing I remember the most is seeing her Planned Parenthood security card with their logo on it, with her name, and said clinic director, and it was just covered in tears and mascara from describing the abortion to me that she witnessed. And that's what you don't hear in our divided country and all of these things. That there's not a cynicism out there that can't be broken, particularly on this issue. There's an exodus out of the abortion industry. The March for Life in D.C. is led by those women who have laid on the table and had an abortion, men who paid for an abortion, or men who are nowhere to be found and now feel guilty. The pro-life movement is not a bunch of self-righteous people trying to force our religion on everybody. Quite the opposite. We don't have an ivory tower view of abortion. You have to if you're going to deny medical care to a baby. You got to live in an ivory tower on some planet far, far away. But we've experienced abortion the last 50 years. The pro-life movement is a movement of converts. And a movement of converts is always a movement of hope. And that's why we're here. There is so much good news in the culture war, if you want to use that term. And it's in this room and it's in these pregnancy resource centers. They are killing the abortion industry's bottom line. They just are. And that is a beautiful thing because we're not doing anything special. We are focusing on hearts and minds. We're offering free medical alternatives. And we're doing so with the love and the mercy of Jesus Christ. And that is attractive to somebody who feels like they have no other options, who feels like they've ruined their life, they're an embarrassment to their parents, they won't go to college, all the many reasons that lead to an abortion. Parkville is able to address that and do so with love. And it's almost always love that they are looking for. And so I want to encourage you to give and to give generously. And I know in a moment we're going to go through these cards and talk about this 70% tax credit, but I read a little book, and it's written by a priest who everybody told him to write a book because he was Mother Teresa's personal secretary. And so, as if Mother Teresa doesn't have enough great stories out there. But there was a story that really struck me, and it's going to sound like Catholic guilt, but as an Irish priest once told me, there's no such thing as Catholic guilt, there's just guilt. It's you're just guilty. But thank you, Father. But it really speaks to, I guess, sacrificial giving. Mother Teresa had a donor who saw a 2020 special on her. So he flew to Calcutta and he sat down and he wrote $1 million check. And she said, "That's so gracious. Does this hurt you? Is this a lot of money for you? Because I don't know who you are." And he said, "Well, I'm happy to give it, And he kind of said all the, I didn't have to fly over here. But he said, "No, I've been very blessed in life." And she said, "The poor hurt. And our world, and so many souls in our world hurt. And you want to help them and you want to give, but it's better for the world if you hurt with them, if you suffer with them, and if you can relate to that through the way that you help them." And so, give a gift, but I'm also concerned for your soul. Give a gift that will really be a sacrifice. I promise you won't regret it. And so he went back and he took his check and left, and he came back a year later and he wrote her a check for $25 million, and he handed it to her and he said, "Mother, this hurts." And it's a great story. We can all relate to it on a certain level, but I loved her. It wasn't the money, it was the spiritual nature of what we're doing here, because we live in a time period for a reason. We don't pick where we're from. We don't pick what time period we live in. And we live in a time where there are 56 million abortions in the world every single year, and it breaks our heart, and we can often throw our hands up in the air and feel helpless. But because of Parkville, we're not helpless. And in fact, quite the opposite. We're challenged and we're winning at a local level. There's no reason why Kansas and Missouri can't be abortion-free. There's no reason why abortion can be legal and available in a lot of America, but you have abortion-free states. There's no reason that Roe v. Wade wouldn't be overturned in the near future. But the work at Parkville is so crucial because it addresses the issue at hand. And so I tell you that guilt-ridden Mother Teresa story as an example of whatever your gift is. If $100 is a stretch, do stretch yourself, because this is where we need to stretch ourselves. We've never done this before as mankind. We've never done this before as humanity. On this scale, in so many countries, with the support of the governments of so many countries. And these countries look to the United States on how to build a pregnancy center, how to do a 40 Days for Life campaign. It says the best of America. When we export abortion through our corporations or our pro-abortion government that we have, it says the worst about us. But it says the best about us when they come to us for the solution, and they do, particularly in Africa and in Latin America. And so it's something we can be proud of, and it multiplies your gift here tonight. But your gift today does stay local, and it goes to ending abortion in Kansas City and offering these wonderful, wonderful alternatives. So at this time, I want to ask one person to hand out the cards, the packets, to each member of the table. And I know they've had this graphic up a lot, and we make jokes about it, but I have to say, as somebody who doesn't live here, I really want to encourage you to take advantage of this tax credit. It is very simple. For every gift over $100, it's an incentive to at least give $100. You get a 70% tax credit if you fill out that form. It's a one-page form, and just return it with your gift. You fill